Welcome to One Tired Teacher, episode 219, 6 Attributes for Creating an Amazing Makerspace. So we are getting later in July, my friend, and the year is getting closer, but hopefully you are still resting. You're still taking it easy. You're still working on your own time frame. That is the way you take back your power, or take back your control. You work on your own time frame. So whatever works for you. And if you're listening to the podcast this week or this episode, you will find it has contained many reruns, and I'll be doing reruns for today and next week's episode, and then we'll be back to regular scheduled content. I hope you have enjoyed taking this walk down memory lane and taking a look at some past episodes on Makerspace. I've been talking about Makerspace for so long, I didn't even realize it started on episode 30. I was like, whoa, that is crazy. I really had no idea that it was in the first year of podcasting that I was talking about Makerspace, because I originally started podcasting because I wanted to talk about podcasting in the classroom. And I wanted to talk about teachers podcasting, as something that they did, kind of almost like an influencer, on Instagram. I thought it would be really cool to hear different perspectives from teachers. And so I had created this course, and it ended up being more of a course for teacherpreneurs who are teachers that have a business. But I did gear it towards teachers and teacherpreneurs. And I really loved the idea of all of it. I loved the idea of teachers having their own podcast, but I also loved the idea of teachers creating a podcast in their classroom with kids. I thought that was so cool. And there's so many cool podcasts out there for kids, and the list goes on and on. So I was really passionate about that. And then it morphed into this really exciting aspect of Makerspace, and the world just took off. So many different layers of, why we do what we do. And it always comes down to, for me, it always comes down to instilling a love of learning for children, and wanting kids to really love to learn and think, and really caring deeply about what that means for teachers, and how you don't have to give up your whole entire lives to make that happen, because you are, as a person, are very important as well. And if we're not taking care of ourselves as teachers, often, that does lead to problems in our classroom, and it does lead to things that are upsetting for so many different people. So I just think, we got to take care of ourselves. It's really, really important. What a tangent this intro was. All right, so let's talk about 6 attributes for creating an amazing makerspace. Hope you stick around.
Welcome to One Tired Teacher. And even though she may need a nap, this teacher is ready to wake up and speak her truth about the trials and treasures of teaching. Here she is, wide awake. Wait, she's not asleep right now, is she? She is awake, right? Okay. From Trina Debery Teaching and Learning, your host, Trina Debery.
Hey, so my goodness gracious, what a tangent I was going on. I don't know what I was thinking. I just, it's the summer. It's time for a slower pace, and my brain needs to get a little bit moving so I can be ready for back to school. All right, today's show is being sponsored by my back to school theme units. They're not, I shouldn't say that. They're really back to school theme weeks, as far as having all of the theme decor, having everything ready for open house, having activities to do for that first week where kids are practicing procedures and routines, and helping work through those aspects, and getting to know your student and class builders. And that's what my back to school packs really are all about. And I have several different themes, and I don't talk about them a lot because I made them a long time ago. I use them in my classroom, and they really helped me a lot to be organized, but I don't really talk about them as much in the beginning of the year. But I thought that it would be a good idea to let you know that I have them. I do have a whole section in my store on TPT, Trina Debery Teaching and Learning, a whole section on back to school. So if you just click on that category on the left, it has a little emoji with sunglasses on. That really doesn't make sense, does it? Yeah, I'm always thinking of it's like summer getting ready for back to school. I think it has an emoji and maybe it doesn't. But anyway, there's a category called back to school. And if you click on it, you'll find all of my back to school packs and you'll find all of the things that I think kind of fall under that back to school theme. So hopefully you check that out and find everything that you need. So today we're taking a look back at episode 101. So it was a lot later than the original episodes of, in the 30s. We moved on into some content, and then I went back to Makerspace because I'm always excited to talk about Makerspace. So today, let's take a look back at episode 101, 6 attributes for creating an amazing makerspace.
Hey, so last week we talked about developing a maker mindset, and that was like on the forefront in my mind as the week was going on. And I definitely had the opportunity to put that into practice this week and to see with my own eyes exactly what that looks like. And it was so fun. I love it. I love to watch kids really thinking and trying to come up with solutions and problem solving and thinking critically and communicating and collaborating. All those things make it so exciting when kids are learning. And I think it's such a powerful way to really get kids thinking outside of the box and to really be able to do some really inspiring things. So if you missed last week's Makerspace mindset, creating that mindset, I shouldn't say Makerspace, but maker mindset, then I will link to that in the show notes. It was episode 100. We are now in the triple digits, so I'm super excited about that. And I am really pumped up about talking about Makerspace and the impact that I think it can have on our learning environment, and what I think it really has the potential to do in some systems that I'm struggling with personally. So I know that it's just, teaching so hard right now. It's so hard. And then when we add, just social distancing, and we add virtual learning, and we add all those components, and it really can be an overwhelming profession to be in. And that's the tired part of me that comes out. And I think, wow, I hear that gravelly sound in my voice. And I think what a long and exhausting week this was. And then I'm like, okay, let me hold on to some of the beautiful moments that I witnessed. So I had a chance to, I'm not even going to say I had a chance. I had a chance to do something creative after something that was not creative, and that was testing. Because of course we're still practicing high stakes testing. And even though I just don't understand that, it's like you have that one time a year, and that's bad enough. I think it's ridiculous, to be honest with you. I have no problem with being accountable. I have no issues with showing what kids are able to do. I just have an issue with it having to look exactly the same for every student. And then I have problems with people using that as like an evaluation tool. I think there's so many other things that we could be doing. So that frustrates me, but I won't get off on that topic because I've done it before and I'm not going to do it today. I had to test some fifth graders this week, and it was a long, boring process. But after we were finished, I had a lot of time with them, and I've got to do something creative. So that was really exciting. So I'm going to get to that in a minute. So first of all, I want to share that makerspaces can be such a powerful way to engage students in thinking and learning. And a great makerspace gives students the opportunity to take these deeper dives into their learning, as well as offer like this total metacognitive ability to look at how you learn and how you think, and really to approach your learning in this way where they are like starting to really understand like what it feels like when it doesn't go right, like productive failure, what it feels like when they're struggling and it doesn't work out the way they want it to. And that can be really powerful, because kids begin to understand how they think and how they learn, especially when they've been doing things like testing. And like I was saying about that a few minutes ago, like I worked with a group of fifth graders this week that were testing, and they were doing this long, activity of reading passages and answering questions. And so when I was finished testing, I took my test box back, and I was turning it in, and the test coordinator and the system principal were there. And I'm like, okay, are the kids ready to go back? Are they finished testing in fifth grade? Well, no, they're not finished. They didn't even start for like an hour and a half later than we started, which didn't make any sense at all. And I'm like, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do with the students? They can't go back to class. And they're like, well, you can just have them read, which I'm like, what? I'm not going to just have them read. They were just reading the whole entire time. I don't want them to feel like reading is a punishment. I want them to think that reading is a beautiful celebration and a gift. And it was bad enough that they were in the media center that I have really tried hard to create this atmosphere of thinking and learning and excitement. And then I feel like it's stifled in this drill and kill way of standardized testing. And so I was already upset about that. So I'm like, okay. I'm like, all right, thanks. I got it. And so I go back. I'm like, this is what we're going to do. And I wanted them to try something out for me. And I have this Piggy and Gerald Makerspace moments that I created. It's in my store. I'll link to it in the show notes. But I've taken, I think it's like eight or 10 of Mo Willems' Piggy and Gerald stories. And I've created Makerspace challenges around these stories so that you do read the story that doesn't come with the story. You buy the books on Amazon, which that's where I get my books so I can get them quick. And I love Mo Willems. So I have many various Piggy and Gerald books. And normally this would be something that I would do with first or second graders. But my fifth graders that needed accommodations, I was like, you know what? I'm going to read you this story. So I picked one of my Piggy and Gerald stories and I'm like, then we're going to do this challenge afterwards. And they're like, okay. And I'm thinking they're going to think this story is I would normally read this to first or second grade, but I think that who doesn't love Piggy and Gerald? So I read it and they were completely captivated, and which I was like, okay, yes, this is good. So they were totally listening. So I think we sometimes underestimate how important it is to still be reading to our older students, because they were listening like they couldn't wait to see what was going to happen next. So I think that is something to keep in mind. Anyway, so we read the story and then we talked about like the lesson of we talked about failure and we had discussions about it. And we talked about like how we were going to, what we were going to do. So I gave them the challenge and I gave them constraints. I gave each table, which they were distanced, each table with enough supplies for their each person, because I have a makerspace in my media center. So I gave them, they had to create a solution to the problem, and they had to do it with the materials they were given. And in this case, it was I Love My New Toy. I think it's I Love My New Toy by Mo Willems. And Piggy gets a new toy and she drops it and it breaks. It ends up being a snap and break toy or whatever. And so I was like, we're going to create a new toy. That was the solution to the problem. And I'm like, but you only can use these materials. So like one table got cardboard and like a strip of tape, and that was it. And one table got building blocks, and one table got Play-Doh, and one table got pipe cleaners, and what else did I give them? Popsicle sticks and tape. And they had to create a toy that could withstand being dropped. So they had to think about reinforcement and gravity, and they had to think about what that might look like as far as a structural engineering kind of thinking. And then they only had 10 minutes to complete the challenge, and they had their materials constraint, and it was so unbelievably fun. They were completely engaged. They're thinking, they're talking, they're collaborating, they're going to town. It was so fun to watch them. And I think it is really powerful. So then I was videotaping, which of course they were totally into. And I had them talking about they dropped it and if it broke, I'm like, okay, so what did we learn from this failure? And one of the students is like, failure? And I'm like, yes. I'm like, it didn't work. So that's a failure, but a failure is a good thing. Failure is the opportunity to figure out what you need to do to become successful. And they were like, oh. And so you could tell like their mind shifted for a second because for a moment they were like, what do you mean failure? Because they're older students. So like they think failure is a bad thing. And I'm like, no, we have to reframe this. So it was such an incredible opportunity to have a conversation about that and to have a conversation about like what worked and then what didn't work and what we need to do and how we need to, the reflection piece is really important in a makerspace moment. So, or in a STEM or STEAM, challenge. It's really important. So that it took something that I dreaded doing and turned it into like this really special moment. So anyway, I want to get to the attributes that we want to include when we are talking about an amazing makerspace, because it did make me think a lot about things that need to be in place in order to make these moments, even if they're just makerspace moments and they're not an actual space in your classroom or learning space, it's still because you don't have to be limited by that. It still can be moments. It can be something that you put away. And I think we can still have this kind of thinking going on. And I really noticed also that students who are often disaffected by traditional schooling often flourish in spaces where they can create, where they can think critically, where they can collaborate, where they can communicate. This is especially vital for ELL students, and that's what I was working with. I was working with ELL students. All students, actually. I think all students can benefit from this kind of thinking. So at the very basic level, Makerspace creates that spark for learning. And with enough oxygen, it can build into this true passion for learning. And oftentimes we just need to give children the taste or the like little bit of the love of learning. And this love will transfer to other areas of their school experience. So great makerspaces, they're not just a fad. They look into the future and they plan. And one way to plan is to know that you are never done. Like a makerspace is always evolving and growing and taking shape. So let's get to the 6 attributes for an amazing makerspace and creating that space in your classroom. And I'm excited. So I think I want you to just keep some of these things in mind and use them kind of like a guide as you plan your makerspace. So let's get started. So attribute number 1, and again, this should be tailored to your community or your class. So that's the first attribute, is that you are tailoring it to your community or class. Like it doesn't have to be exactly the same. There is no one size fits all. That's the beauty of a makerspace. It can be anything that you can imagine or create, and space does not have to limit your possibilities. You want to focus in on maybe some themes or ideas that are relevant and meaningful to your specific learners. And maybe even, maybe that would even be different in a classroom versus a media center or like an actual makerspace in a school or a makerspace class. Like you're going to have different themes and ideas around, your specific students. I think a social and emotional relevance can come into play here, and that can come into play in any space. So I think that's a common theme that you might work around as far as your makerspace. I mean, that gave me such an opportunity to talk about, resilience and grit and failure and like picking yourself back up and those kinds of things. And I think that can be really important. Also, we're a STEAM school, so it's very easy to need to incorporate that kind of thinking as well and those kind of disciplines. So that's something to consider. And I think themes might be different in like a pre-K class than they would be in a 5th grade class. Your focus might be on meaningful play in a pre-K class, or your fine motor skills or development, and or even literature focused. So I think that those are some things to keep in mind when you're thinking about like really tailoring it to the needs of your students. So that's attribute number 1. The second attribute for creating an amazing makerspace is critical thinking. You want to be sure to provide opportunities for students to take their learning deeper. And like, for example, with those 5th graders, I could have given them the materials and told them to build, but I wanted to implement constraints and criteria and ask them to reflect on this, which took the thinking deeper, and it allowed us to go to another level rather than they just created and then they're finished. And another extension that I could have done in this situation is I could have had them research on reinforcements and structures. And I think that can take the thinking deeper. So you can always build on to these moments and allow that learning to really grow, and you're fostering that learning. All right. Another level of like increasing the learning, or really thinking about the critical thinking, is adding technology. This can often enhance the learning as well, and it really pushes kids to think and to try new ways. And I think that's really important. All right, attribute number 3, inclusion, in being inclusive. That is the beauty of a makerspace. All students should feel included and comfortable in your makerspace. And an amazing makerspace ensures that everything created is celebrated by showcasing students' creations. And however you do this, maybe you do it like I did it with a video, maybe you do pictures, maybe you do a walkabout. There are several different ideas that just came to my mind, and that I think you could do in order to make people feel like their work is valued, and that they are valued, and that they feel like they are included. Great makerspaces also give all students choice in their thinking, which allows them to take some control and feel like they have some ownership. And it allows them to foster relationships with a collaborative aspect. And I think that that's really important. Makerspaces provide equal access to learning, and students who have unique learning needs really thrive in these spaces, because these spaces eliminate the fear of failure. And in fact, train kids to embrace failure as a way to get to the solution, which we can think of as like productive failure. And I think that that's really cool too. And I kind of feel like that happened in that example with the 5th graders. When I said that about failure, like at first they're like, oh, failure. And you're only reading kids' eyes right now, because you can't see really the rest of their facial expression. So I saw the moment. And then I also heard someone say failure, like kind of whispered it. And it was like, whoa. But again, like we've got to get kids past that, because if not, then they're going to take life's failures as like the end of the world. And we know what that feels like as adults. And we really want people to feel or figure out that we can get past those things. And, failure is often success turned inside out. And I think that's really important to remember. Great makerspaces, they kind of they have like a democracy, or democratize. I don't know if that's the right word. That's the word that's coming to my head. But it like creates that type of learning by making materials and supplies and concepts available and accessible to all learners. And I think that's the beauty of these kind of things. That test that they were taking, that wasn't developed for all kind of learners. That was developed for one type of thinker. And so makerspaces give you the chance to really include all kinds of thinkers. All right, let's talk about attribute number 4, differentiated. So this is the part that I love the most. Like, this is the aspect of Makerspace that I think is so powerful. It is really easy enough to switch out materials that help meet the needs of various children. And this really creates a learning environment that nurtures like all types of learners. And I think that that's important. Makerspace can be differentiated based on materials, on different content, on learning, on environment, on the learning environment, and on the processes. And I think that is really powerful. Student choice also helps a great deal with this aspect, and giving choice to these 5th graders allowed each need to be met. And I think that is important. Even flexible seating can allow for a differentiation. And that often happens in a makerspace. Like sometimes kids are on the floor, sometimes I have wobble stools in my makerspace, and I have a beanbag chair in my makerspace. And so I think that allowing different types of flexible seating is also something that can really help. All right, attribute number 5, vision. So having a clear and intentional vision can set your makerspace up for success, as well as your students. Knowing you're kind of knowing your why. It can really help you like have a clear purpose. It can help you like really get to the belief that inspired you in the first place. And I think that is really magical. And attribute number 6 inspiring. So creating the conditions for your students to want to make is so important. Challenges, they really motivate kids, and they create and to build, and they create this environment where they're like, yes, I can do it. I can overcome. But it's not competition. I didn't have teams like working against each other. I didn't have kids working against each other. The goal was for them to collaborate and talk out loud about what they needed and what might work or not work. And I think that that's important to keep in mind. I think healthy competition is all right in a sense, but I don't think we have to have this constant competitiveness going on in our learning. I think embracing collaboration is, for me, so much more powerful than embracing competition. So I like the idea of a challenge, but a challenge like that you're kind of going against yourself, or, it's not like you're competing with other people in the class. So I really want to be clear about that. And I think, putting it in a challenge perspective really helps kids get excited about it. And I think if you've got like pictures of past challenges or, past creations, I think that can sometimes be really inspiring for kids. I don't want them to get ideas from it's important to get ideas from other people, but I don't want to give it away for them. I want them to actually really have to think through what it might look like. So I hesitate to give examples sometimes when I create like makerspace moments in literature. I have a lot of those too. I'll link to those in the show notes. And I hesitate to give like an example of things that kids have come up with, because I really want kids in all classrooms to be able to think that through. And sometimes just the process of thinking it through is frustrating. And that's an opportunity for us to help kids get past frustration and move forward. And I think that can be a huge, important, like a very powerful aspect of like a life skill. If you base your challenges on some great literature, like those makerspace moments in literature, I really think that can be inspiring as well. And it can really get kids thinking about solutions and creating solutions for problems that occurred in the story. So I think that's fun too. And you can make anything a challenge, and you can make it a mission or a game. And making anything into a game is certainly a surefire way to motivate students and to really get them excited about learning. All right, so there you have it. 6 attributes to creating an amazing makerspace. So I really hope that you take these and you focus on, some time, and you strive to create and grow this amazing space in your learning environment. Until next time, this one tired teacher is excited about the possibilities of really getting kids motivated and inspired to learn and to think. Sweet dreams and sleep tight.